1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4.
The most important aspect I've done for this game is I've written the narrative. We've got lots of movies in it this time. That was one of the requests from Total War 1, is there were players would like to see more movies and stuff like that. So, you know, we've got like 25 minutes per race. So we've got proper feature-length kind of animations. But it's not just about that, obviously. There's lots of gameplay in there. And so, writing-wise, the speeches for the legendary lords and their quest battles, art, magic items, spells. You know, if there's a lot of text in our games, and if it's there, myself or one of our team has written it. So, Total War game is primarily and always will be a sandbox gameplay. It's about you creating your own story, really. You're kind of conquering the world, forming your own empire, and how you do that is totally up to you. But we also wanted to make sure that players felt that they were in a Warhammer novel, that they were taking part in this wider narrative. And also from a gameplay perspective, one of the criticisms you could put against past Total Wars is that once you reached a certain power level, once you were the largest dog in the yard, so to speak, then no one else could touch you, and the gameplay fell away a bit, and a lot of people didn't even finish their campaigns. So what we can do by adding a narrative is add plot tension, and you know, you've got to fight for the vortex in this game, and you've got to cast these rituals which have massive gameplay implications. So how you achieve casting those rituals is up to you. You know, that's where the open world sandbox comes into it. However, if you ignore the rituals, other races are going to start overtaking you. So when you hit a ritual, you'll get this big gameplay effect, and that allows us to insert a bit of story, so you know what's going on in the wider world. But this is the first campaign in Total War where there's a game over screen. You know, if you don't do what you need to do to dominate the vortex, could be game over for you. So even if you've got the largest empire, if you're like 2 rituals behind the Dark Elves, say, then you're in trouble. We always said it was going to be a trilogy. And with Warhammer 2, we kind of hit the ground running. We knew what we planned, and it will be the same for Warhammer 3. We know what we're doing. And so, you know, the team's in place.
You're building momentum.
Yeah, there is momentum there. And also for a lot of players, we're not going fast enough. You know, the high elf players or the elf players were like, where's their army? So Warhammer's loads of fans all around the world, and everyone has their favourite army. And so actually for dark elf players, it's been a very long wait. And we couldn't do soon enough. And I'm sure there's some races that we haven't covered yet, and we have fans emailing us, social mediaing us, going, where are the other race? I'm not going to say
it's a really big law.
We can never have done. I mean, we're the biggest game studio in the UK. You know, we have loads of animators, artists, games developers. We're a big studio. But even with such a manpower, we couldn't get all 16 races out in one go. It just wouldn't be possible. And wouldn't be cost effective either. So we've had to split the game, make a trilogy. And so here we are with the second one. There's another one to go. With the first Warhammer, we was always going to do the old world first, because that's where the vast majority of the races are. Which means if you're going to do the old world, you need the Empire, and then the vampires are next door, and then the dwarfs across the mountains, so that's free, and obviously the orcs and goblins constantly raid. So already you're full. And then this game, we always knew we were going to come west, so that means we're going to hit Ulthuan, which is the island home of the elves. So obviously elves, and also there was a lot of players who were waiting for the elves. So and then obviously Lustria in the Southlands, where the Lizardmen live. So so already you've got like Dark Elves, High Elves, and Lizardmen, and then I think we would have been lynched if we'd left the Skaven out any longer. The clamouring for Skaven was palpable. The plan is and always will be, let's get all the armies in Warhammer into our game. And so by the final game, we will have this ultra mega campaign map where you can play any of the Warhammer races and conquer the world. It's kind of the game I always imagined when I was 12 years old. So I already mentioned the rituals, the giant monster synced combat, dragons can now shoot from the air, and also we're retroactively putting that back into Warhammer 1. We have a grand campaign coming in the first patch, which will merge, so all the races you own thus far will fight each other. There is rights, which are campaign level spells. There's army abilities. High Elves can now interfere with diplomacy between other races, which is a first. Dark Elves are Black Arcs, which are mobile settlements that can bombard into battles. Lizardmen have the Geomantic Web feature, which allows them to kind of link up these powerful ley lines and buff their commandments. Traits, they can have different levels now. So you don't just become a dwarf hater. There's different levels of how much you hate the dwarves. We've increased the level cap to 40 now. So you can carry on tailoring your legendary lords and heroes.
Your hate for dwarves.
And we've also added another feature, more multiplayer options. So now you can combine, you can do a 2 versus 2 campaign. So there's different, so actually it's 4 races but 8 factions. So each race gets 2 different start positions, which is what people wanted. And there's also free-for-all as well, which people kind of wanted, which is, 3 armies fighting each other. The whole point of historical Total Wars is a big what if. So I don't think that they're not necessarily shackled by history, in that you pick a starting point, and history before that is as history is, but from that point on, it's your story, and you're doing beg your pardon, an alternative history. You're taking your own story, and kind of Warhammer's the same in that there is a timeline, there is a history to the universe. It just happens to be a fictional one, and you're for instance, I always wanted, as a Empire player, this might be a bit lore deep, there's like Marienburg, which seeded from the Empire. Basically, the greedy emperor at the time was bought off. So I always say, I want that city to be part of the Empire again. That was the first thing I tried to achieve. And so you get that kind of freedom, what if, even in Warhammer. Where there are limitations, where Games Workshop would kind of put their foot down, is if we said all dwarfs don't have beards anymore, or orcs are green. Which we're not, orcs are blue, which we're not going to do, because we love the world and we want to bring that world to life. Trying to speak for the animators and the artists in particular, I think they absolutely loved it. You're going from if you were hired in 4 or 5 years ago and you thought you'd be doing Roman shields for your career, and all of a sudden you're doing dinosaurs riding dinosaurs. And here's a great example of just how much the guys love it. So in Warhammer 2 we have monster versus monster synced combat. So a dragon versus a carnosaur. That wasn't actually scoped in our game. We couldn't afford to do it. But the animators cared so much, they started staying behind after work, unasked, and started doing these synced animations because they felt that was needed in the game. Historic Total Wars are ongoing. We've got 2 dedicated teams. But I think what's important is the lessons we're learning, they obviously take on board, and vice versa. They've looked at what we've done with Warhammer, and I think there's definitely features we've developed that they will probably port across, and vice versa. Absolutely.